My husband said he would do anything for our future together. I believed him for 4 years. Then I found out he'd been watching me cry over negative pregnancy tests for 12 months, knowing exactly why they were negative because he'd gotten a vasectomy without telling me. I'm Jessica, 31, a landscape architect here in Austin. I met Marcus during my final year of grad school when he was finishing his MBA at UT. He was charming, ambitious, constantly about the life we'd build together. The house in the suburbs, the kids, the family vacations. He painted pictures of our future so vivid I could almost touch them, and I fell for every single word. We got married after 2 years of dating. The wedding was beautiful. Parents flew in from Chicago. My whole family came from Houston, and Marcus gave this speech about how he couldn't wait to start our family and watch me become a mother. Cry. Everyone cried. Thought I'd found my person, the man I'd spend the rest of my life building something meaningful with. We agreed to start trying for kids after his promotion came through, and we'd saved enough for a down payment on a house. That happened 18 months into our marriage, and I went off birth control that same week. Marcus seemed excited, point out cute babies at restaurants, forward me articles about the best school districts in Austin, even started a savings account he called the College Fund. Everything felt like it was falling into place. 6 months of trying. I told myself it was normal, that these things take time, that stressing about it would only make it harder. But month after month, the test coming back negative. I started tracking my ovulation obsessively, changed my diet, I cut out alcohol completely. I did everything right and still nothing. I remember sitting on our bathroom floor at 2 in the morning, staring at another negative test, wondering what was wrong with me. Marcus found me there, helped me up, held me while I cried. He said all the right things. We'll figure this out. It'll happen when it's meant to. I love you no matter what. I believed him, every single time. After a year of nothing, I finally went to see a fertility specialist. Dr. Reeves ran every test imaginable. Blood work, ultrasounds, hormone panels, everything came back normal. She said I was perfectly healthy, but there was no medical reason I couldn't conceive. She suggested Marcus tested too, just to rule everything out. I brought it up that night over dinner. Marcus got quiet for a second, then said he'd schedule an appointment. Passed. I asked again. He said work was crazy, he'd get to it, and weeks passed with more excuses. I started to wonder if something was wrong with him that he was too embarrassed to admit. Maybe low sperm count, maybe something genetic he didn't want to face. The whole time, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I was too stressed, maybe my body was broken in some way the tests couldn't detect. Cried in the bathroom after every negative test, and Marcus would hold me and tell me we'd figure it out together, that it would happen when the time was right, that he loved me no matter what. I believed him. God, I believe him. The truth came out on our 4th anniversary. We were at Opal's, this upscale restaurant downtown that Marcus loved because his colleagues ate there and he could show off. He'd ordered champagne, made a toast to 4 years of marriage. Everything felt until he set down his glass and said he needed to tell me something. His voice was calm, almost clinical. Like he was delivering a quarterly report instead of detonating a bomb in the middle of our marriage. He said quietly, I got a vasectomy 14 months ago. I never wanted children. I just told you what you needed to hear so you'd marry me. The restaurant noise disappeared. I could see his mouth moving, but the words weren't connecting. 14 months. I'd spent 12 of those months blaming myself, crying myself to sleep, scheduling doctor's appointments, Googling fertility treatments at 2 in the morning while he snored peacefully beside me. And he knew the whole time. When I finally found my voice, I asked why. Why marry someone who wanted kids if he never did? Why watch me suffer for a year? Why not just tell me from the beginning? His answer made my blood run cold. He said it was a test. He wanted to see how I'd react to not being able to have children, whether I'd stay with him anyway, whether I loved him enough to accept a childless life without making him feel guilty about it. He said his therapist suggested that secure relationships require partners to accept each other unconditionally, and he needed to know I was capable of that. I stared at him. This man I'd shared a bed with 4 years. This man I'd built my entire future around. He'd turned my deepest pain into a psychological experiment, and he was sitting there expecting me to understand. I asked if he was serious. He said completely serious. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my voice was steady. I said, you watched me cry 12 months thinking something was wrong with my body. You held me and pretended to comfort me while knowing you were the reason. That's not a test. Cruelty. He looked annoyed, genuinely annoyed. He said I was being dramatic, that he was trying to build a stronger relationship, and that most women would grateful their husband cared enough to make sure they were compatible long term. I walked out, left him sitting there with his champagne and his excuses. Took an Uber home, packed bag, and went to my sister Megan's apartment. I filed for divorce the next morning. Fallout was immediate and brutal. Marcus told everyone a different story. To his family, I'd abandoned him because I was baby obsessed and couldn't handle a minor setback. To our mutual friends, I'd overreacted to a misunderstanding and refused to go to couples therapy. To his colleagues, I was emotionally unstable and he was the victim of my mood swings. He rewrote our entire marriage in a way that made him the hero and me the villain. His parents called me selfish. His mother left voicemail saying I'd ruined her son's life over a simple medical procedure that didn't even affect me directly. Like a year of manufactured grief was just an inconvenience I should have gotten over. His father sent an email suggesting I needed psychiatric evaluation for abandoning a good man over nothing. Our mutual friends sides, most of them his. Couples we'd had dinner with, people from his office parties I'd smiled at for years. They all believed whatever version of events made him look less monstrous. I watched friendships dissolve one by one. Each lost another reminder of how thoroughly Marcus had infiltrated my life. My own family believed me, but even they were shocked by how calculated the whole thing had been. My dad, who'd walked me down the aisle and shook Marcus's hand and welcomed him into our family, barely speak when I told him the truth. He just sat there shaking his head, saying he'd never seen it coming. My mom held me and cried. The divorce itself was a war. Marcus's lawyer tried to claim I was entitled to nothing because I'd abandoned the marriage without attempting reconciliation, painted me as impulsive and emotionally disturbed. They demanded I pay his legal fees for wasting the court time with divorce based on hurt feelings rather than legitimate grounds. Every filing felt like another attack. My attorney, thank God, was a woman named Patricia Chen who'd seen this kind of gaslighting before. She documented the timeline of his vasectomy, my fertility appointments, the medical records showing I'd been treated for stress and anxiety related to infertility while he sat on the truth. She presented it all as evidence of intentional emotional abuse. The judge saw through Marcus's victim act. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. But Marcus wasn't done. Couldn't accept that I'd left, that his test backfired killer. He started showing up at my job sites, making scenes in front of clients. He sent flowers to my office with notes about how we could still fix things if I'd just be reasonable. Created fake social media accounts to monitor my posts and comment passive-aggressive things about women who go on love too easily. One afternoon, cornered me in the parking lot project site in South Austin. I was supervising the installation of a water for a campus when I saw his car pull in, stomach drop. He got out and started walking toward me, and I tell from his face this wasn't going to be a calm conversation. He said we needed to talk, didn't, grabbed my arm hard enough to leave a mark, and said I owed him an explanation for destroying his life. My foreman, a 60-year-old guy named Ray, who'd worked me 3 years, saw what was happening and came over, told Marcus to let go of me and leave, or call police. Marcus laughed and muttered this was between him and his wife. Ray said I wasn't his wife anymore, and if leave in the next 30 seconds, there'd consequence. Marcus left, but not telling me that I'd end up alone and miserable, that no one would ever love me like he did. Ray drove me home that day. He didn't ask, just said if I ever needed anything there. Small act kinds meant more than I could. Every week brought some new intrusion into my life. Marcus called my biggest client and told them I was mentally unstable, that my work couldn't be trusted. He called my sister's employer and made a complaint of professionalism, trying to get her fired as a way to hurt me. When I changed my phone number, he showed up my apartment building and left notes on my car. Filed for a restraining order. The judge granted it. It doesn't stop someone who's determined to make your life miserable. Marcus just got more creative about how he harassed me, using friends as intermediaries, creating new email addresses, finding ways to remind me that he was still there, still watching, still furious that I dared to leave. Daniel was the one who finally made him stop. Not confrontation, through something I hadn't expected, friendship. Daniel worked at the same company as Marcus. They'd known each other for years, had been part of the same professional circle, played golf together occasionally. During my marriage, I'd met Daniel a handful of times at company events, exchanged polite small talk, never thought much about him beyond basic pleasantries. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Daniel reached out with text surprised me. He said, "I'm sorry. What he did to you was wrong." I told him that. I didn't respond at first. I was suspicious of everyone from Marcus's world, assumed they were all either complicit or willfully blind. Something about the directness of Daniel's message felt different. No excuses, no qualifications, just acknowledgement. We met for coffee a few weeks later. I wasn't looking for anything, just wanted to hear from someone in Marcus's circle who admitted reality. I chose a cafe in East Austin, somewhere Mark would never go because it wasn't fancy enough to impress anyone. Daniel was already there when I arrived. He looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his cup. He wasn't sure if coming had been a mistake. When I sat down, he said he understood if I didn't want to talk, that he just felt like he owed me an apology on behalf of everyone who'd worked Marcus and never seen who he was. I asked what made him different, why he believed me when everyone else took Marcus's side. He told me about a conversation he'd had with Marcus a few weeks after I left. They were at a bar after work, and Marcus was complaining about divorce, calling me crazy and ungrateful. Daniel asked what had happened, and Marcus told him about the vasectomy, not with shame, pride. He called it a compatibility screening that I'd failed. Daniel said that was the moment he stopped being Marcus's friend. I've known him for 6 years. Daniel said, thought I knew who he was. That night, listening to him brag about watching you suffer, I realized I'd never known him at all. We talked for 2 hours. Daniel told me about his own divorce 3 years earlier, how his ex-wife had cheated on him with his business partner, how he'd spent years rebuilding his sense of trust. He understood betrayal in a way that he didn't try to minimize what Marcus had done or suggest I should have tried harder. He just listened, asked questions, and said the thing I needed to hear most. It wasn't your fault, he said. None of it was your fault. That coffee became lunch a few weeks later. Lunch became dinner. Dinner became walks along Lady Bird Lake on Saturday mornings. We weren't dating, not yet, but we were building something I hadn't experienced in years. Honest conversation, shared silence that didn't feel awkward, the slow accumulation of trust. Daniel told me about his childhood in San Antonio, his big loud family with 4 siblings and parents who'd been married 40 years. He talked about his dream of having kids someday, how his divorce had made him wonder if that would ever happen. He was honest about his fears, his failures, the ways he'd contributed to the end of his marriage. I told him things I hadn't told anyone, about the nights I'd crying in our bathroom, convinced something was broken inside me, about the shame I'd felt going to fertility appointments, wondering what my body was doing wrong, about the way Marcus's cruelty had made me question whether I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. Daniel never tried to me. He just sat pain, let me feel it without judgment, and showed up the next time we planned to meet. 6 months after my divorce, Daniel told me he had feelings for me. We were sitting on a bench near the Fluger pedestrian bridge, watching the sunset over the water, and he said it like it was a confession he'd been carrying for weeks. I know this is complicated, he said. I know you've been through hell. I know you might not be ready for anything, and that's okay, but I need you to know that I think about you all the time, and I want to be more than friends if you'll let me. Told him I felt the same way, but was terrified of making another mistake. He said we could take it as slow as I needed. He meant it. When Marcus found out, he lost his mind completely. Someone told him they'd seen us together at a restaurant, and within hours my phone was blowing up with messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Friends of Marcus, passing along his fury. Colleagues who felt entitled opinions about my personal life. His mother called me a whore for moving on so quickly. Marcus showed up at Daniel's apartment at midnight, pounding on the door, screaming about betrayal and backstabbing. Daniel's neighbors called building security, and when Marcus wouldn't leave, called police. He was escorted out in handcuffs, charged with disturbing the peace, and spent the night in county lockup. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Marcus called Daniel's parents in San Antonio and told them them their son was sleeping with his ex-wife. Daniel had been pursuing me during my marriage. The affair had been going on for years. All lies, every word. Daniel's mother called him in tears, asking if it was true. Then came LinkedIn. LinkedIn of all places. Marcus posted about how certain colleagues couldn't be trusted around couples' marriages. HR got involved. He was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into workplace harassment. He started messaging my clients directly, warning them I was mentally unstable, that my work couldn't be stood. 3 of them asked to meet with me to discuss what was happening. One of them, a woman who ran a hotel chain, looked me in the eye and said she didn't believe a word of it, that anyone who acted the way Marcus was acting was clearly the unstable one. Every attack just pushed Daniel and me closer together. We were united by a shared enemy, but more than that, we were united by the way we handled it. We didn't retaliate. We didn't engage. We just kept building our life together while Marcus burned his down. A year after we started dating, Daniel posed, "We were hiking in Big Bend National Park, one of those places that makes you feel small in the best possible way. He'd carried the ring in his backpack the entire trip, waiting for the right moment. When we reached the top of Emery Peak, he got down on one knee and asked if I'd spend my life. I said yes before he finished the question. We got married in a small ceremony at my parents' ranch outside Houston. 20 people. No drama. Just promises we both intended to keep." My dad cried again. This time they were happy tears. He told me later that he'd seen something in Daniel that never seen in Marcus. Genuine kindness without agenda. Daniel's family came from San Antonio, all 4 siblings and both parents, and his grandmother Eleanor, an 83-year-old woman who'd raised 7 children and buried 2 husbands and still had more energy than anyone else in the room. She pulled me aside during the reception and said she'd been worried about Daniel after his first divorce, worried he'd given up on love. Then she squeezed my hand and said, "Found you, and I can see why he waited." The real vindication came at the worst possible moment for Marcus. Thanksgiving, 2 years after my divorce. Daniel's family hosts a huge gathering every year at his grandmother's house in San Antonio. 40 people, 4 generations, the kind of loud, loving chaos I'd always dreamed of being part of. We'd planned to announce my pregnancy that day. I was 14 weeks along, past the danger zone, finally ready to share our news. Daniel's grandmother had set up a special photo display family announcement, and I'd put together an album showing our journey from dating to marriage to the ultrasound image of our baby girl. What we didn't know was that Daniel's cousin Whitney had invited Marcus. They'd dated briefly years ago, and Whitney had stayed in touch despite everything. She thought enough time had passed. She thought everyone could be adults about it. She was wrong. Marcus walked in just as Daniel's grandmother was calling everyone to gather for the announcement. He saw me standing there with Daniel, saw my hand resting on my stomach, and his face went white. I watched him process it. The life he'd sabotaged, family he prevented, future he'd decided I didn't deserve. All of it standing right in front of him, real and alive and growing inside me. Daniel's grandmother, bless her heart, had no idea about our history. She handed me the microphone and I shared our pregnancy, cheers and tears, and a room full of people who genuinely wanted us happy. Marcus couldn't hold it together. He started screaming that I'd stolen his life, that Daniel had manipulated him. This whole family was celebrating a relationship built on betrayal. His face was red, veins bulging, spit flying as he screamed accusations that made no sense to anyone but him. Daniel's uncle, a retired cop named Frank, escorted Marcus out. Whitney was mortified, apologizing to everyone within earshot. The commotion didn't ruin our moment. If anything, it clarified it. Because as Marcus was being walked out the door, still shouting about tests and loyalty and what he deserved, he yelled one last thing that made my stomach drop. He said, "I never even wanted the vasectomy reversed. I was going to tell you we could adopt. You were supposed to come back. You were supposed to prove you loved me for me." The whole room went silent. His test had never been about compatibility. It was about control. He wanted me to beg, to compromise my dreams, to prove that his needs mattered more than mine. And when I refused to play, when I chose myself over his manipulation, broke something in him that was already broken long before we met. Daniel's grandmother walked over to me, took both my hands in hers and whispered, "That man has a sickness in his soul, and you, sweetheart, are exactly where you're supposed to be." Our daughter was born the following spring. We named her Elena, after Daniel's grandmother. She has my eyes and Daniel's calm temperament. She rarely cries, just watches the world, quiet curiosity like she's taking note for later. Daniel built crib himself. When I asked where he learned woodworking, he said he'd taken classes specifically because he wanted to build things for our children with his own hands. He'd been planning for a family with me before we'd even said we were trying. That's the difference, I realized. Marcus planned tests. Daniel planned furniture. I'm ready to fight anyone who ever doubted us. Every colleague believed Marcus's lies. Every friend who took his side without asking questions. Every person who made me feel like I was crazy for leaving a man who'd tortured me for a year. They were all wrong, and Daniel was right. Last I heard, Marcus got married again to some woman he met at a conference. I hope for her sake he's changed. People like Marcus don't change. They just find new people who haven't learned their patterns yet. Sometimes I think about that girl I used to be, crying in bathrooms over pregnancy tests, blaming her body failing her. I wish I could go back and tell her the truth wasn't her fault. The man she trusted was running an experiment on her heart. That pain would lead somewhere better, but maybe she needed to go through it. Maybe that's how she found her way here, to a kitchen that smells like pancakes on Sunday mornings, to a husband who says what he means and means what he says, to a daughter who will never have to wonder if parents wanted her. Marcus wanted a test subject, I wanted a partner. I finally found one.